Welcome, everyone, to Authors on the Air. I'd like to introduce my friend Gabino Iglesias. Presentamos mi amigo autor Gabino Iglesias. His new book is called The Devil Takes Us Home. Here we go. Let me put it in front of my face. The Devil Takes You Home. Gabino, welcome to Authors on the Air. You've been a guest and a guest host on this show. I'm happy that it's you and I sitting down together. We were just discussing your book tour. So you've gone, traveled a little bit around the Southwest and the West. Have you been enjoying yourself?
I've been having a blast. Meeting readers has been awesome. This is my first time also talking to booksellers, which is like they're on their own breed. They're really special, unique people. And I've been shaking hands and signing books and learning the ropes because I've never had an official tour before. So this has been a lot of fun.
What are booksellers telling you?
Booksellers are selling me absolutely everything. Every time that we go there, the conversation starts with my book because they enjoyed it and want to talk about it, and we easily just start talking about everybody else on their shelves because as soon as I walk in, I start spotting friends, and I'm like, "Have you read this?" And then they've always read everything. They're very passionate and they really want to talk about everything they've been reading. So it's an easy transition out from like, I really enjoyed your book, and then it's awkward because what else can you say except thank you for making my day and thank you for having me here, and then immediately you just start talking about somebody else, which is much better. But yeah, they're their own breed. I think hand selling books is an art form. And I invite everybody. I know you click on your phone or your computer and Amazon or Barnes and Noble or even a bookshop, which I encourage everyone to use.
Sure.
We'll have those books delivered to you, but you don't know exactly what you want, but you know what kind of mood you're in, drop by your local indie and talk to a bookseller. Tell them this is the last thing that I enjoyed. And you will spend probably the next 30 minutes talking about books, and you'll walk home with a stack of books. So apologies to your wallet, but do that and support your local indies.
But it's a great place to spend your money, no matter what.
Yes.
Your book has been called a genre-bending book. And I'm particularly fascinated by it because, as you and I were talking in the green room, I grew up in Miami where there's a heavy Hispanic influence,
right.
And there's a lot of myths and cultural identities around being Hispanic that a lot of gringas and gringos don't quite understand. So did you pull a lot of that into your writing when you decided to write The Devil Takes You Home?
I think I've been doing that since Zero Saints, and it had a lot to do with moving away from the Caribbean and starting to live in the U.S. Like I was aware of the existence of racism, but everyone in Puerto Rico is a different color. It's just like Cuba or the Dominican Republic. And if someone pretends not to be of color, then we have our national question is "¿Y tu abuela dónde está?", which means "Where's your grandma?" Like, if you're going to pretend that you're white because you got green eyes, show me your grandma, and then we can talk about cultural heritage and different colors. And then religion was more or less the same thing because the Caribbean is heavily syncretic. Again, Cuba, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. And the weirdness, quote unquote, of having a Jewish family next to a Christian family, next to a Catholic family, next to a family that practices voodoo or Santeria or Palomayombe or Mesa Blanca or, any other of the Caribbean religions. It wasn't really a thing for me until I moved here. And I realized that, as I said, that's weird. And so we don't really argue about religion back home because whatever you want to believe, whatever Orisha you want to pray to, or may offer your sacrifices to, it's fine. Everybody's right. Let's not fight about it.
Right.
When I moved here, that kind of changed. So I wanted to bring that in, the fact that everybody believes in different things. So that whole thing, one nation under God, it's like we need to pluralize that because there's a lot of gods.
Right. I agree with you.
And I like to bring those in. I like to let them party and do their own thing and sort of try to bring that syncretism to the page. where folks can be, firm believers in God, and then there's other things that they might do that don't quite fall under what people in this country would do if they're a Catholic or Christian, and they go regularly to church. So it was a world that I wanted to celebrate because I was missing it since the day I moved here and it became apparent that having that diversity and that complexity and that richness, I didn't know it was something that I was going to miss. So in 2015 with Zero Saints, I said, let me start bringing in like the cult to the Virgen de Guadalupe, the cult to Santa Muerte, the Orishas, Voodoo, Santeria. Let me just bring it in and mix it and make it really as interesting as possible.
You did the same in Coyote songs too. You've and by the way, folks who are listening, it's not coyote, it's coyote. For those of you who really don't know what the word is, it always cracks me up when I hear that. But again, when you come from a Hispanic community, you learn how to say some words. Gabino, tell us how this book came about. Was this an idea floating around in your mind all the time? I don't even know how you're inspired, except for by like you were talking about your Caribbean roots and all. Tell us about what inspired this book and how you got started on it.
Yeah. First, I think the book Coyote Songs has morphed over the years because yes. I wrote it and I live in Texas, so it's Coyote Songs. It's Coyote Songs, and because I live in the South, it's also Coyote Songs. So it's whichever pronunciation people prefer is fine by me. It's like as long as they're reading it, call it what you want.
That's right. It's the book.
It's the book. Right. No, I had Mario's story circling around in my head probably since 2016. It was, I think, some of my really hard time transitioning out of being a TA for teaching assistant at the University of Texas at Austin, and being fired from the Austin Post, and just trying to do the what folks refer to now as the gig economy. Sure. No one in the gig economy has health insurance. Right. It's not a thing. It's just you do it for the money. You have no packages, no vacation, no anything. Sure. And then it just kept percolating, and as the 2 years, 2018 to 2020, I started telling this story. But I was teaching 4 classes in high school full time. I did have health insurance because it was a school. You know all about that. And then in March of 2020, as the pandemic was raging, I was notified that come August, I didn't have a contract. It was too weird. No one knew how things were going to translate to online teaching. So I was in that group of people that was just let go. And I spent about 2 months panicking, uninsured as the pandemic, raged across the world. It was not a perfect time to look for jobs. Everybody was in the same boat. Right. Everybody was losing their job. Like people who worked at stores, the folks in the service industry, a whole bunch of educators that I know also lost their jobs, and they were scrambling to see what they did. And suddenly it was not just like my situation, working 6 or 7 or 10 jobs in 5 years and being uninsured all the time, and having to procure my antibiotics for people who dabbled in other chemicals, and those stories were not. It wasn't really about me at that point. It was like, wow, every single morning I woke up and I read a story about someone who caught COVID and now owed, $300,000 in medical bills, and they were uninsured. And so the more I looked into that, it was like, all right, so we got people dying for things that they could take care of with a pill a day, but they don't have that. They can't get it. They can't afford their insulin. Like, it's a battle. It's an ongoing battle. And that made me very angry. And so that drove the next 65,000 words of the book. I was angry at racism because we'd had a lot of that in the previous years. I was angry at a lot of things, and suddenly I was home, and we were supposed to stay home, and I had no job. So I woke up in the morning, and it was, what do I do with this time to feel like I'm not, a waste of human skin? Let me write that novel. Let me put it all out on the page. And that, a lot of crime writers and writers of dark stuff, for us, including you, that's it's therapeutic. It's like going to therapy. Like, you put it all out on the page,
Yes.
and you walk around a little lighter for the rest of the day. And the obviously I wanted it to be barrio noir, which is a mixture of crime fiction and horror fiction with
Right.
elements of magical realism. Um, there was a lot of things that I wanted to talk about. I lost a chunk of my soul working the phones at a life insurance company for almost 2 years. I
Wow.
wanted to talk about that, so I threw that in the book. And I had done a lot of driving around, so I wanted to celebrate the South and small towns across the South. So I threw that into the book, and it became just everything that I was thinking and feeling at the time just went into the book. And it was sort of like that last Hail Mary. I need to make this one work. And it was the one that worked. It was the one that I landed an agent for, and it was the one that sold at auction, and it was the one that allowed me to start transitioning from let me not go into Indeed anymore and look for gigs. Let me keep doing my teaching and my MFA teaching, and try to pull this thing off of being a writer, which is it's a weird gig. Not a lot of us get to do it, quote unquote, full time. So
would you say this is your most personal book to date?
I would say so. Yes. I think Serious Saints was a lot of me, trying to understand the border and the situations that I was living as. You're in Florida, which is very different. You all know that Venezuelans exist, that Cubans exist.
Right.
In Texas, if you have a name like mine, or you're brown, or you speak Spanish, you're immediately Mexican. So it was. There's
Even
no
the
other
languages are so different, so it's
right.
just crazy. I know.
It was a lot of that, and then I think with this one, to bring Mario, make him Puerto Rican, talk about Puerto Rico. It was me doing two things. The next novel takes place back home, so I wanted to start transitioning to writing about home, and it was also about that thing where when we talk about borders, we tend to think about undocumented workers and undocumented migrants. And in this case, it was like, all right, so here's someone going through most of the same things, who has a blue passport with an eagle on it and an American citizenship, right? And I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about that middle of the road otherness, where it's like you go to a job interview and they ask you if you need, what's it called?
A work visa or something?
Sponsorship.
Sponsorship,
yes.
Yeah.
Will you require sponsorship? If you, no, I do. I'm an American citizen.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do that. I wanted to keep exploring the world of Spanglish, which, New York, Chicago, Boston, Miami, Texas,
We
wherever
have
you
Spanglish.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everywhere you go in this country, it's there. And I was lucky that my editor, Jish Kendall, he was on board with it. He said, I know you don't do italics, and I'm all for it. Let's do that. And I would call it my most personal one to date.
So you've already written the next one?
Next one is done. It's done. What is done? There's a draft of it.
Your draft is done.
And now we'll spend probably the next half year trying to turn it into something that can be published. But yeah, it's done. And so we're moving on to the next one.
So I want to ask you, what does it feel like at the beginning of your writing process? Are you anxious? Are you excited? With this book, you were ticked off. I mean, you were really angry, and that motivated you. Is it different for each book that you write?
The anger is like the it's the base. I'm always angry. I wake up. I'm a journalist by training.
Right.
I try to keep up with the news. So in this country, that means waking up and, screw Ted Cruz and screw Greg Abbott and screw the Supreme Court and screw everybody. And just the list just goes on and on and on. And you're angry at everybody and everything. And then the rest of the stuff comes in. Like this one was the beginning of the next book was, I think every writer sort of grows. You try to grow. I don't think anybody starts out being great. This business is not about being great. Writing is about constantly getting better. And when I was in high school, one of my good friends, his mother was murdered while working the door at a club, and she was a victim of a drive-by, and she was shot in the face. And I knew back then that at some point I was going to write about that, but I never felt like I had the chops. It felt like a lack of respect to try to fictionalize that as the beginning of a novel. And after writing this one and the working with two editors on it and realizing that my writing had gotten better since, like, I don't know, the year 2000, I was like, all right, so I waited enough. It's time to tell that other story. And then those stories just sort of, I have a head full of stories like most writers, like you do. And then I think once in a while, one of those emerges to the top and kind of demands, this is the one that you have to tell now.
It's interesting. Yeah.
And
although I'm a reader, not a writer. I mean, I can barely get out an email that's spelled correctly. So, you may have noticed, but
yeah,
but I do read, and I want to just say I understand what you're saying about watching the news, which is why for 18 years I've not had a television. So
that's a good move. Yeah,
yeah, and I don't hold anything against anybody who has a television. It's just that I'm a news junkie, and I thought, oh, I'd have that thing on all day long and probably be slashing myself. I'd be cutting myself, having to watch the news all the time. So instead, as you see, I read. I read a lot. So, how do you feel when you finish your book?
Always scared, insecure. There's always the thought that it's crap. I wrote 100,000 words and it's probably garbage. And then I don't think I've learned to celebrate things yet. I'm working on that. I promise I'm working on that. But it's sort of, all right, so this one's out. Great. I need to turn in the next one. It needs to be better. And then once I did that draft, it was like, okay, that's done. But now I have to edit it. I have to make it good. I have to make it real good so I can be better than the next one. And I know that the moment that I finish the last edit for that one, it'll be like, I only had a 2-book contract. Like, now I'm done. What did I do enough to be able to sell the next one? Like, what's next? There's always, there's no making it. I've never understood that concept. Like, wherever you climb to the top of a mountain, the first thing that you see is all the peaks around you, right? Like if you climb Everest, you're surrounded by other peaks.
Right.
So it's always, I did this one thing. What's next? What can I do now? How do I talked to Josh Mallerman, who's a good friend and a really great.
Right, you interviewed Josh on the show.
I interviewed him here.
Yes, yes.
And talking to him, how you sometimes talk to people and it finally allows you to put into words what you've been feeling. And I told him this is kind of like getting into the NBA because everyone dreams about playing professional sports, and then you get there. What you going to do now? You better make it to the playoffs on your first year. You better win a champ. You better do something,
right?
Because there's a lot of people pushing, and a lot of people want that same opportunity. But can you maintain? Like, what are you going to do to show the world that you've earned this opportunity? And the moment we signed that contract, I was like, yes, crap. What do I have to do now? So it was, he joked about making a T-shirt that called it the oh hell yeah fuck moment.
Right.
So it's like that. I haven't learned to celebrate anything because I'm worried about what's next. What do I have to do now?
Do you think that most writers are insecure about what's going to happen next? Everyone.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome, hack syndrome, insecurity.
No matter how many times, how well a book sells, there's always the fear that the next one may not sell. Is that it?
Yeah. And I think if they have enough books out, they've experienced it. Like sometimes you see a novelist that can put New York Times bestselling author on a cover, and then you go back and you realize, yeah, that was 3, 4, 5 books ago. Like that was
Yeah.
the one, and then the other ones have done well and they've built a career out of it. But it's a very rare, the perennials like Stephen King. He puts
Right,
a
right.
book out, it's going to be a New York Times bestseller.
Sure.
But for the mortals, it's kind of like you don't know how it's going to be received,
It's interesting.
how it's going to perform.
I want to talk about your other professions. You are a reviewer. You also you review for quite a few big outlets. For example, we were talking about our mutual friend Rob Hart. You review for NPR. Who else do you review for?
Big ones: NPR, Boston Globe, San Francisco Chronicle, and I think those are the big ones. Then it's Locus Magazine, Mystery Tribune, Volume One Brooklyn, Horror DNA, a bunch of others. I
Do
try to.
you enjoy that part of it? Do you enjoy the reviewing?
I love it. I love it. I realized many years ago that I couldn't get anyone to pay me for my own writing, but I could get folks to pay attention or pay me $10 to write about somebody else's book. And I'm always going to be talking about other people's work anyway. So this was sort of a trick to first get books for free. It's like a superpower. I write
Sure.
an email and I mentioned those three. It's like, this is Gabino with like NPR, Boston Globe, San Francisco Chronicle. Could you please send me this galley?
Right.
And you have a galley in your hands. It's a beautiful thing. You get books for free.
It is
Um,
my superpower
yeah,
too. I get 20 books a
exactly.
week, so I understand that.
Yeah, and it's a great gig. It's an opportunity to shine the light on other folks. In later years, in the last 3 or 4 years, I've switched to, if I really hate it, I might write to an editor and turn down writing a review, because I think no author needs help not selling books. Like, we manage
Sure.
not selling books very well on our own. We don't need help with
Right.
that.
Right. Right.
And also, I don't pitch. I love Stephen King. I don't pitch Stephen King or Michael Connolly or any of those folks, because they don't need my help. They don't need that spotlight anymore.
Right.
They're not struggling to pay the bills. They're not trying to get their careers off the ground.
Right.
And so what I do is, like, women, members of the LGBTQ community, writers of color, Appalachian writers,
Right.
work in translation, work from smaller presses or indie presses. Let me try to pitch those things and try to get people to let me talk about that in a lot of venues. And that makes me happy. It's sort of like, I think I see it as part of the writing community. Reviews have been around for a very long time,
Yeah.
and I think they still matter. That's why you
I think
have,
they do.
you
Well,
know,
I think Amazon changed that too.
and
Amazon changed
Goodreads.
it
Yes.
so that you almost have to write a review, and it's the conundrum of, I've purchased your book and I've supported you that way, but now
Right.
you want me to go and write a review, and a lot of
Yeah.
people are very hesitant to do that. They don't know how to write a review,
Because it's
so
hard.
yeah, yeah. And so, how do you balance that? How much do you owe to the author once you've purchased their book? Do you owe them a review? No, but would it be nice if you are comfortable doing a
Right.
review? Of course it would be. It would be lovely,
Yeah.
because that's what drives the engine, so to speak. That's the fuel
Yeah.
for the engine anyway. Gabino, when you got your PhD, did it change your writing at all?
Not at all. I don't think I would have gotten a PhD if I knew back then what I know now. I think I was too deep into and I'm not gonna say this because it's a hot topic, but I was too deep into my student loans to not go forth and finish it, at least, and get that piece of paper to make it all worthwhile. I didn't want to pursue a PhD-ish career. I did not want to move every 2 to 3 years. I didn't want to go to, like, Nebraska and then
Right.
Oklahoma and then move to California and uproot myself every 2 years. And I did not want to spend all my writing time just working on academic peer-reviewed journal articles that no one's going to read except like
Right.
12 to 20 people that care about the same topics.
Right.
Um, so I was, while trying to get my PhD, I managed to publish zero peer-reviewed academic journal articles, and I
Good for you.
published Gutmouth, Hungry Darkness, Serious Saints, and Coyote Song. So I had 4 books out while trying to get my PhD. So any writing time was, I did my papers, I got through my classes, I wrote my dissertation, but writing time it was for fiction. And I tend to joke now that I've had stayed in academia. Right now, I can put up a joke on Twitter, and within 3 hours, 10 times more people will see that tweet than people would have read an academic article from me.
Exactly. So. I get you completely. So speaking of your love of other writers, whose book is on your nightstand right now?
My nightstand right now.
Who are you reading?
Because I read like 20 books at the same time.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Rereading Amina Akhtar's Kismet, because we just did an event together in Scottsdale, and I wanted to read about those blackbirds again and talk to her about those. I am finishing, and I'm on a blank on their names, but I started a book 2 days ago. It's a nonfiction book that I'm reviewing, and it is the history of the world told through body parts. So they will pick a specific moment in time, for example, Cleopatra's nose, and they will tell you that entire chunk of time in about 4 pages, based on how noses were seen in ancient Egypt and Greece.
You have to send me the title. You have to text me the title. It sounds amazing.
Hold on. Hey, look, we can do this. Because I try to keep track on my phone, so I know when deadlines are coming up. It's a long title. It's titled "A History of the World Through Body Parts: The Stories Behind the Organs, Appendages, Digits, and the like attached to or detached from famous bodies," by Catherine and Ross Petras.
So I imagine that title grabbed your attention right away.
Yes, as soon as they say body parts, I'm like, chopped up body parts.
You're there with it.
Yeah. Right. I just reviewed another nonfiction book, "I'm Not Broken" by Jesse Leon, which was in his words, a sad, drug-addicted, sexually abused Chicano kid, and how he went from that to being a Harvard graduate. I'm finishing Isabel Cañas's The Hacienda, which is very spooky and entertaining to read. And what else am I reading? I just finished 2 books. Michael Seilinger's "Anybody Home?" because we did an event here together in Austin, and I love that. And Nat Cassidy's "Mary," which is very dark and very complex and very creepy. And he tells a very unique story, but at the same time, if you think dark horror fiction is your cup of tea or your comfort food, in my case, you can go through a checklist and go like, all right, so voices, check. Ghosts, check. Serial killers, check. Mental things that might not be there, surreal darkness, check. So Mary is also very good. And I'll leave it at that, because if not, I will open up Goodreads and then.
And there you go, and there's all the books. I know what you're saying. Gabino, tell everyone where they can find you on the web, social media. What's your favorite medium to communicate with your friends and readers with?
None of them, because the world is full of trash people, and I think social media kind of exacerbates that. Yes. But I'm always talking books on Twitter because it's so fast and so friendly, and I've made it my home. I'm on Facebook too, along with all of your racist uncles sharing memes. We're on there too. It's Gabino _ Iglesias. And I don't talk politics and I don't talk books much, but I'm on Instagram because I'm a photographer and I love to put up images on there. So come find me and we can hang out.
I'm so glad that you came here today.
I'm so glad you're fine and you're all good and we could do this.
I'm good. I'm going to New York tomorrow. I am heading to New York. My nephew is in his first off-Broadway play,
nice.
A play written by Jodi Picoult and her daughter. And so I couldn't go when my family went, so my brother's coming over here from Miami, and we're flying up to New York for the weekend to see him.
That's great.
I'm excited. I know. I know. Come back, and come back anytime you want to talk to Rob or anybody else.
You let me know who's on schedule, and I'll interrogate them.
Muchas gracias, mi amigo.
Muchas gracias a ti.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
See you later.
Cheers.